Call your mother. While attending your weekend seminar at the Omega Institute, I noticed a woman who seemed to be, shall we say, very uninterested in the topic of reincarnation. From her uncanny ability to sleep through most of the lecture that day, I assumed that she was every bit as disinterested in all that Omega had to offer. About halfway through the day, you had everyone choose a partner who was not someone we knew and meditate while holding an item from him or her. Our task was to remember every image and thought that came to us while holding this item, and then share what came to us with each other. As the crowd began to choose partners, it was apparent that others had also noticed this woman's disinterest. They seemed to be avoiding teaming up with her. I decided to ask her to be my partner, half to save her from being left her. I decided to ask her to be my partner, half to save her from being left alone and half to wow her with my intuition and thus prove to her that this was a worthwhile event. I held her item, concentrated oh so very hard, and received plenty of images: a little white dog, a pool surrounded by a fence, an awning over the back porch leading to the pool, the feeling that it was very hot, and what seemed to be a message from the dog that all was okay. We completed the meditation, and I was so excited that I simply had to go first. As I rattled off the list of visuals, all this woman kept saying was, No. A pool, no. I live in the Bronx. Hot, no. Lived there my whole life. Dog, white, no. A little let down by my partner's failure to connect with any of my seemingly astute details, I sat back to hear what she had received from my item. I was truly not expecting too much, due to the fact she had slept through most of the lecture. Boy, was I wrong. In her very strong New York accent, she proceeded to tell me my entire life. See Volur Mutha, was how she started, and she went on to tell me about 2 homes with which my mother was having trouble deciding what to do, a miscarriage that my mother had had that involved a little boy spirit that had stayed with me. This was the second time I had been told this, and much more. All turned out to be true. I know this because the first thing I did afterward was, naturally, call my mother. I was so excited after talking with her that I could not wait to tell everyone what had transpired. When you called on me to tell of my experience, I was floored again. What I had picked up on seemed to be for an audience member in the front row from a pet that had recently passed on. Every detail seemed to fit her life, and others had also picked up on the message from her beloved dog. This wonderful experience taught me so much about how connected we truly are, and that we need not worry about the future or dwell in the past but rather live each and every moment to the fullest. And while we are doing so, we must always remember to see Wala Muthas. Laurie Bogeddon. This is why we are told not to judge a book by its cover, more so, not to judge at all. Laurie was kind to choose her partner, and she was rewarded by a spot-on series of important messages, culminating with the little boy spirit. Projection is the act of attributing your thoughts, feelings, or judgments onto others, and this act frequently creates distortion in reality. Things may not be as they seem or as you assume. For example, perhaps Laurie's partner had been sleeping because she was tired, not because of disinterest. Maybe this was the 2nd or 3rd time that she was taking the course and already knew the lecture part, but was really returning for the experiential exercises. We are connected to many more people than those in our immediate proximity, in this case Laurie's partner. Laurie accurately received information from a person in a different part of the room, a person who had just lost a little white dog. The same after-death message was there again: everything was okay. Animals have souls too. Laurie felt the deep peace, the flow, the unerring wisdom that all is as it is meant to be. Knowing this, she could live in the present moment, which is where happiness resides, instead of living in the future or the past. We must all do as Laurie did and stay mindful. In my book Only Love is Real, I elaborate on this concept. The Vietnamese Buddhist monk and philosopher Thich Nhat Hanh writes about enjoying a good cup of tea. You must be completely awake in the present to enjoy the tea. Only in the awareness of the present can your hands feel the pleasant warmth of the cup. Only in the present can you savor the aroma, taste the sweetness, appreciate the delicacy. If you are ruminating about the past or worrying about the future, you will completely miss the experience of enjoying the cup of tea. You will look down at the cup, and the tea will be gone. Life is like that. If you are not fully present, you will look around and it will be gone. You will have missed the feel, the aroma, the delicacy and beauty of life. It will seem to be speeding past you. The past is finished. Learn from it and let it go. The future is not even here yet. Plan for it, but do not waste your time worrying about it. Worrying is worthless. When you stop ruminating about what has already happened, when you stop worrying about what might never happen, then you will be in the present moment. Then you will begin to experience joy in life. We must take the time to enjoy our tea and our lives. It is so simple, and yet it is not easy. Let go of the worry and the fear. Fear is a toxic and debilitating emotion that robs us of joy, replacing it with anxiety, stress, and dread. Instead, be mindful of the sweetness that each day brings. Life is so full of exquisite beauty. Drink it all in. Like Lori, I too have found that being at Omega Institute, or at any longer workshop of several days, leaves me in an altered state, one in which I can truly live in the present moment and feel the interconnectedness between all beings. I know that my consciousness is not in its normal mode, it moves from the everyday to the other perspective. Some characteristics of this perspective are a sense of loving detachment, of timelessness, of being non-judgmental and more observing, and of a deep inner peace and calm. The mystic and philosopher Krishnamurti, a wonderfully wise man, once wrote that you can set the table for this altered awareness but you cannot make the guest appear. In other words, you can create the conditions for it, yet you may have to wait for it to happen. Frequently, in teaching at Omega, my wife, Carol, and I leave the week or weekend with this extremely sublime feeling. We both know that it won't last, but we're always watching to see how long it will. Often, we will get from Rhinebeck, where Omega is located, to the airports in New York, and then something will happen there, rudeness, people shouting, that shifts us back to the ordinary consciousness. The transition is very abrupt, and although we're quite aware of it, it is nonetheless difficult to return. The last time we were up there, however, it happened even more quickly. Carol and I were driving away from Omega, and after about 30 minutes we stopped at a convenience store in a heavy rainstorm. She went into the store as I parked nearby, with many spots in front of and in back of my car. Inadvertently, even though there was nobody around me when I parked the car, I must have taken a spot that another person wanted. In this pouring rain, as Carol was inside the store while I waited in the car with the windows up, a man around my age, wearing just an undershirt, started circling around my car and yelling at me. I had no idea why, until I could hear him saying, "You took my spot. I want this spot." It seemed so out of place to me. I was still feeling detached and filled with peacefulness, although it was now starting to ebb. As he stood outside my window, I noticed that he was wearing a medallion of the Virgin Mary around his neck. It struck me as extremely odd and even inappropriate that a man who wore a Mary medallion was yelling, screaming, and acting somewhat violently. The Virgin Mary is a symbol of loving kindness, of reaching out to help people with arms of grace. This man wore her right next to his heart yet acted in a completely contradictory manner. I knew that he could damage the car or break a window. He was capable of anything, ranting that way. And, at that moment, the shift happened. Perhaps anxiety, alarm, or fear kicked in and required me to return to regular consciousness. I said something to him like, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were there. My wife is in the store, and I'm waiting for her. She knows that I'm here, but if I move, perhaps it will be difficult to find me. I apologize." With that, he left. I don't know exactly what was on his mind, but he disappeared. Carol came out and we drove off. I explained the story to her, and that brought her out too. It has occurred to us that people who meditate regularly or who reach transcendence have to deal with this issue. How do you relate to mundane concerns while in that beautiful space? How do you retain a state of peace, of love, and of compassion, yet not have people manipulate or take advantage of you? This is a very difficult task. Meditation, contemplation, introspection, and even reading a spiritual book will help. What I have found over the years is that some reminder of the state also helps to assist in returning to it. You just have to remind yourself of what it felt like. What was your breathing like? What was in your perceptual field? What physiological changes did you notice at the time? I also find myself feeling similarly when I'm awakening from a particularly striking dream. I know not to eat or read the newspaper right away but just to stay with that state, because in that perceptual mode I'm aware of so much more. It's at once a feeling of being intuitive, of knowing things at a deeper level, of understanding. However, when going off to work, contemplating traffic, or engaging in some similar action, it is often necessary to return to that normal waking consciousness. It is important to remind yourself that every step is sacred, every breath is holy. Stay in that mindful mentality and there will occur in you a shift in consciousness. You will have a feeling of complete peace. It is healthy for you, healthy for your body, healthy for your mind to do this. You are a spiritual being, and this is your natural condition. Think of the other as your normal state, and think of the everyday as a temporary mode to help you get by in the physical world. The exact manner in which a held object can facilitate the transmission of private facts and details in the psychometry exercise is not really known. It is possible that there is a transfer of energy, for many people describe the object as feeling warm or becoming hot as they hold it in their hand. Several ancient cultures have described a life force that empowers all beings and all of reality, one that contains a wisdom and intelligence beyond words. It has been called Chi or Ki, or Chi Prana, the Tao, the Source, and numerous other names. The art of Feng Shui has attempted to describe its flow. Maybe this indescribable ocean of energy underlies the entirety of existence and is responsible for the transfer of intuitional insight and knowledge. I have often wondered about the nature of the unknowable energy field. For example, how does it possess wisdom and other human-like qualities? How do physical objects relate to the field? How do we appear from it and eventually return to it? How are its vibrations or frequencies modulated? Perhaps this indefinable, omniscient, ethereal energy vibrates at the highest possible rate, and as its frequency is dampened it begins to manifest form, at first like a gas, wispy and spirit-like. As it condenses, the delicate gas becomes a sleek and smoothly flowing liquid, not yet with rigid boundaries. The solid or physical form, which takes shape as the liquid condenses even further, does have such boundaries and is relatively restricted compared to the other forms. The objects that we hand to our partners during the psychometry exercise are examples of this. And so, too, are we. Yet the basic energy is the same, all derived from the etheric. At the end, we simply return to that divine, idyllic form that is our source. There is no birth and no death, only transformation. Earlier in my career, I sometimes wondered why I did not encounter the phenomenon of ghosts, or attached entities, or negative spirits in my practice. Others had written entire books about doing the possessions or clearings of the clearly unfortunate host. And although I recognized, clinically, that most cases were actually projections of unwanted or uncomfortable impulses by the patients, perhaps not all of them were purely psychological. Yet I never actually came across any cases of malevolent spirits. 2 subsequent meetings, one with several Tibetan Rinpoches and the other with a Taoist master, helped me to understand why. In 1994, I had the opportunity to sit down with some Tibetan Rinpoches at the University of Michigan. During a lively discussion about reincarnation, I was able to ask them why I had never once had a patient with an attached malevolent spirit. The Rinpoches immediately began laughing. Perhaps my question was too simplistic. No, one Lama explained through an interpreter. Your energy does not permit that in such close proximity. They laughed again. The question was not simplistic, I understood, I just had never thought of it in terms of energy fields. There was some kind of repelling force that kept those kinds of spirits from interacting with me. By the spring of 2010, I still had never personally come upon such a case with any of my patients. At that time, I was traveling in China and had an audience with a leading Taoist master in the gentle green foothills outside Xi'an. Several Taoist scholars from nearby universities also attended. We spoke for an hour and covered many topics. Eventually, I asked the same question that I had posed to the Tibetan Rinpoches 16 years earlier. Once again, it was met with laughter. Once again, the answer was the same. This time, 2 interpreters were needed, one for the regional dialect into Mandarin and the other to translate from Mandarin to English, yet I am sure that there was little to no distortion. That energy would be too uncomfortable in your energy. That energy could not flow there. It could not happen. There is nothing unique about my energy field. I meditate often, and this may raise one's vibration. Yet this practice is free, universal, and available to all. The answer of the Lamas and the Taoist master was not specific to me, it applies to each of us. Evil, spirits or manifestations can be equally as uncomfortable in your energy field as in mine. The important point is that by mastering our spiritual lessons, we become incompatible with that kind of energy. This is how you can cast out your own demons. In addition to meditation, another way to raise our vibration is to fill our hearts and our minds with loving kindness, with tranquility, and with peace. These qualities, I suspect, are very important in the process of refining the energy field. If incorporating these practices and principles into your daily life rids you of affliction, in whatever form, what a blessing you will receive. The comments of the monks and scholars reflect the acceptance of the idea of negative spirits, but my impression from the discussion with them is that ignorance would be a more appropriate word than evil or malevolent. There is no real evil. Ignorant spirits might appear to be dark, but they are simply at an unenlightened, literally, in the dark, level. They are like first-grade boys in a schoolyard, a bit wild and mischievous, perhaps pulling the girls' hair, but not evil. First graders are qualitatively the same as graduate students. The only difference is their level of knowledge and maturity. The boys are young and ignorant. Soulmate, this is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.